What's good, guys? It's Spunk here. Today I'm just going to be talking about my favourite plugins that are free to download. So when I'm looking for plugins, you're ideally trying to find something that you couldn't do in Logic anyway, but a lot of them you obviously can do it. But the good thing I think when you're sort of collecting plugins to look out for is you're trying to find things that are going to make your life easier. So a lot of the time with third-party plugins, you can already do these things within your DAW, but the benefit of a lot of them is that it's going to make the whole job a lot quicker or easier for you to do. First plugin I want to talk about is OTT. This is one of my favorite free plugins. I think it is a lot of people's, especially those into like sound design and manipulating audio. So what it is essentially is a multi-band compressor. It's capable of both upwards and downwards compression. You've got levels of how much upwards, how much downwards you want there. It's multi-band and you've got these three frequency ranges, your highs, your mids, your lows. You can apply you can adjust the volume of each of those stages and the amount of compression on each of those frequency bands. Depth is the amount you want. You've got time and then in gain and out gain. So just as an example, here's a sample from Splice just of some Indian percussion. That's without, and then if I turn it on, so it essentially is just an extreme version of compression. You can hear it really easily there, like that it's bringing out all the quieter parts of that audio file and making them a lot more present. So what I'd usually use it for is mostly just in the creative process. If I'm messing with audio and trying to get some interesting results, you can stack them up and really crush a bit of audio. This is good for sort of bass design if you're trying to make sort of mid basses, and you could also try the other thing that's a bit more of a practical use is you can try sticking it on a bus, like putting it on a send, and I'll usually send my drums to it. I quite like putting it on kicks actually. If you want to get a bit more high end in kick drums, sometimes that's quite good. But if you send your drums to OTT on a send, you can get a bit of punch behind them. It doesn't always work, and you have to kind of use it sparingly, but that's a sort of throwaway tip there. So the next plugin I want to talk about is Fresh Air from Slate Digital. Now basically this plugin is a dynamic high frequency processor. So what you can use it for is to add sort of like air and niceness and sparkliness and all that good stuff to your high end. When you're trying to achieve this, like a lot of the time, you'd probably open a channel EQ or something and you try and make like a boost in the highs. So rather than boosting the EQ, Fresh Air is essentially going to do the same job, but without the harshness. And it's just generally a smoother technique, and I think it sort of works off dynamics rather than just boosting a frequency range, which is cool. So yeah, if we listen to the sample without, turn it on, and then I'll add some of this higher. So you can really hear like the fingers and brush strokes of those drums there when you bring this up. Which is not too dissimilar to the OTT, so I actually sort of make the connection between like how this is working with dynamics there. You can sort of hear the similarity. And then you've got mid-air, which is going to be affecting your high mids and the presence of those. So that's a really useful plugin for a lot of the time. You can use it creatively, or you can use it in your mix downs, or even in masters, like for getting more presence and out of your high end in your mix. Yeah. So the next plugin I want to talk about is Frequency Echo from Valhalla. Now you can use this as a standard delay plugin, but it's also a frequency shifter, so you can do some cool kind of chorusy effects with it. So if we keep the decay down for a moment, I can show you what I mean by that, and just use this shift knob. Yeah, so that's obviously pretty cool. And then we can add some delays in. Yeah, which is pretty mental. So another cool one Valhalla do is Supermassive, and this one's also free. And I mostly use this for reverbs, but it's also a delay plugin, and it has warp mode and things in there. You can do some cool stuff with it, so I'll just show you some examples. So then I want to talk about vinyl from iZotope. This is a plugin that emulates the sound of vinyl, basically. So if you want to add some vinyl textures to your recording, you can do so with this. And you've got options for like upping the warp of a record. You could add extra scratches. You can turn up these different sounds with gain. There's dust, mechanical, electrical. So got like the electrical sound from turntable there, the mechanical sound. You change the RPM. You can up the wear of the record, so again, sort of affecting the quality. Up the top here, you have like options of what year you want it to sound like. So if you want it to sound like a really old record from the 30s, or if you want it to sound like a more modern record from the 2000s. Got some different options for models on there as well. So that's quite a simple one, but it's a cool one. It's worth having, especially if you make like lo-fi and things like that, where you might want a vinyl noise. Personally, I do stick vinyl noises in just about everything I make, just as like having a noise layer that runs through the whole track, because that sort of helps it not to feel too dead. It sort of glues stuff together sometimes just by having some noise to fill out between the sounds. Similar but not quite, what we can also do to add noise, there's a plugin from Denise called Noize Retro. So this is the next one I want to talk about, which is also free. And what this is going to do is add like a layer of white noise to any sound that you put it on. So if I play the sample and then sort of slowly introduce it. So that's quite an extreme amount. Obviously we wouldn't want that much, but you see what I mean? Like it will react to the velocity of the things happening in your audio file, and the more like the louder the audio is, the louder the noise will come up. So it sort of sounds quite natural. I wouldn't necessarily put this on percussion like this, but if I'm using something like Retro Synth or Monarch to make sort of analog sounds, or even my actual analog synth, if I'm recording that in and I want to add sort of wear and tear or more character to it, adding some white noise on top like that can be a really good move. Also, putting white noise on top of your basses and then adding distortion and compression afterwards to kind of glue them together can have some really cool results too. So then the next one I want to talk about is Diablo Lite from Somatics. There is obviously a full version. This is the light version, which is free. What this essentially is a transient shaper designed to help it's designed to help things like your drums punch through in the mix without changing the output volume. So it's just, what it's trying to do is keep your sort of input and output volume the same while increasing perceived loudness and punch of your sound. So if we test it out on this drum loop, the mix down. Yeah, something like that. So you get the idea. You could stick that on most things, but I guess what it's designed for is drums and 808s, is what it says specifically on the website. But yeah, try it out on anything. That's a good little thing for getting extra punch to some of your sounds. Okay, then these ones that I want to talk about are from this company called Freak Show Industries, and they do 3 plugins, I think it was, that I've got. So Mischie is the first one I'll have a look at. And they're like really quirky, strange plugins. And when you go on their website, they'll try and guilt trip you out of having them for free. But if you go through, if you click through all of it, you can get them for free. But they will try and guilt you into paying. What I did was I got them for free. I downloaded them for free and then later decided that because I loved them so much, I'd go back and leave a donation. So that's what I sort of recommend doing. Sort of, I viewed it as like, giving them a trial and then deciding that I wanted to buy them. But, if you're really skint, you can just nab them off there. So this thing is a bit crusher, I believe. Part of it is anyway. It's doing lots of things, but I think if I just show you, that'll do better than anything else. Okay, so you can see that's absolutely bad, and it's basically a multi-effects plugin. So when I was playing around with it then, what I would assume is this is like multi-band compression. This is like some kind of chorus thing, maybe. Here you've got white noise coming in. You got distortion. What was that one? Not sure on that one. Over here, I think is the bit crusher. And then when you turn this on, you've got some modulation effects going on. It sounds like there's some delays and things like that. But yeah, absolutely mad plugin to play around with. That's the first one from those guys. The other one, which is, to be honest, probably the one I use the most, is Dumpster Fire. So, again, no idea what it's doing, but let's have a listen to it. Again, you can hear how mad that is. So that one I just like if I've got a sample in my tune, maybe in the intro I'll have the same sample that comes in the drop, but I'll be running it through this, so you've got some sort of variation. I'll use it to make some kind of atmosphere with a sound. But again, that's very fun to play around with. They're very creative plugins in general. And then the last one from them is Backmask. Now, what this is doing is like reversing your audio. Again, quite hard to understand, but they do that on purpose. They are supposed to be like silly creative plugins for just messing with stuff. You probably could work out exactly what's happening there, but I haven't bothered. I just sort of load it on a track and mess around with it till it does something that I like. So let's try this one out. So you can see it's doing stuff there where it's kind of like taking bits of the audio and reversing them. And I guess you're sort of editing these parameters. I'm not sure what these buttons are doing, but if anyone knows, leave that in the comment section below. That would be really handy. The only thing I'd warn you in advance about this one, particularly this backmask, is very CPU intensive. Like, even with this just on one track inside my DAW right now, with nothing else going on, it was struggling, as you could see there. You can still see it's jammed, the volume's there. Okay, so the last things I want to mention in this list of free plugins. So far these have all been audio processing plugins, but I do want to mention one free synth. Okay, so if you are into Serum or Massive wavetable synths, or maybe you're not and you want to try them but you can't afford Serum or Massive, Untitled, if that's how you say his name, he has basically made these two synths called Vital and Helm. Vital is the more recent one, probably the more advanced one, but Helm's also great as well. I'll show you Vital first, because that's the one that everyone's raving about. But essentially it is a wavetable synth that does most, if not all, things that Serum or Massive would do. But it is completely free. You've got all these effects in here. You've got 3 oscillators there. You've got a matrix thing like you do in Serum. You've got all these advanced sort of controls. You can have modulation. You've got your envelopes. Everything that you could do in Serum and Massive, but for free. And it sounds wicked, and there really is no sort of like, no downside to that. So really I would suggest going, if you're into synthesis, like definitely checking that out. And also I'll show you Helm. Yeah, and this is what Helm looks like, which to me it looks a bit, I don't like the design of it. Both, to be fair, both of them I think is the downfall, that I don't really like the design of them. I don't like what they look like, but other than that, that is literally the only issue I have with them. I find them a bit too busy, if that makes sense. When I'm looking, I'd rather sort of look at one thing at a time, but that is literally just personal preference. There's loads of presets in both of them as well. So yeah, if you want a free synth, those two I definitely highly recommend. They are very versatile and capable for free synths. You get a lot of free synths out there that are kind of a bit naff, but those two definitely recommend. Anyway, yeah, that's my list of my favourite free plugins that are available for Logic Pro. If you enjoyed this list, please like and subscribe if you found it useful. If you have any suggestions of free plugins that you think I've missed, please leave them in the comments. And yeah, I hope this video has been useful for you guys. So, nice one.